right, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go. We'll see what happens. Ian, you can let me know how bad things get on your end, because I can't seem to tell for myself. And if I start trying to multitask to figure out what's going wrong, then my just connection gets worse and worse. And the goofy thing is my wife went out to run an errand, so I'm literally the only one in the house using internet. Nobody else is here. I should have the strongest internet, I guess, other than just my building siphoning internet from each other just on a daily basis because we share connections. But other than that, it should be as strong as I can get. So it's just choppy. Audio's good. Okay, audio's most impotent. So let me just go with it. So I'm back from ShireCon, as you can see behind me because of the plain background. I'm back at Studio A. It's somewhere deep in the borough of Brooklyn. ShireCon was a lot of fun, as it has been. Played in, I didn't run any games. Maybe next year I'll run a game. I keep thinking like, hey, this is the year I'm going to run a game. Well, I mean, this is only my second time. I thought maybe this year I was thinking about it, running a game. I just didn't get my act together. So I'm not quite ready yet, but I played in a couple games. So it's a very small con. So I guess the setup for this, it's kind of an interesting little con. I guess they could really call it Grognard Con because it is very much full of grognards, of which I find myself. I suppose I have 1 foot. I feel like I have 1 foot in the kind of grognard community and 1 foot out. But I think as many meanings as you want to attach to that term, if I was going to use one word to symbolize the population of the folks who are running the con, running games, playing games in there, it's grognard. And the good associations, and if you have bad associations with, they probably all fit. There are definitely personalities who are very representative of the grognard community that are there. I think the other thing that's cool is there are also probably a high percentage of creators. I was there, Daniel was there, multiple other creators and authors, for example. I wish I had his full name in front of me, but Jeffrey, who was the GM for my Hyperborea game, is also the author of Hyperborea. He was running the game. So you get a lot of that where it's a very small, and I don't know how many people were there, but it's not that big. And yet it had a large percentage. In fact, Daniel's here right now. Yeah. We were talking about it basically like, yeah, you can run into a lot of people. Bandits Keep is there. All kinds of folks are there, even though it's a really small con, but it's in a nice spot. And it is even now, I would say even now more convenient for me than last year's was, because it literally is on the road right to basically Studio B. So it could not be more convenient to get to. And it was a lot of fun. Let's see, what do I want to talk about with the con? So I picked up some stuff. You saw the pictures I posted to YouTube over the weekend. I picked up some books, got some great deals. They do these silent auctions, and you can really get some steals in there because you're lucky. Because the one thing, a lot of these guys have been in the hobby a long time, longer than me, or at least with longer continuous play than me. A lot of stuff going on, and you'll find folks are donating kind of games they'll put to the silent auction. And I think what happens is there's certain things that just everybody has already, or all these folks have, so they can kind of fly under the radar. I know Daniel picked up something. What was it? He picked up the basic box or so, or he picked up the Holmes box. And it wasn't like the cheapest price you may be able to find it on, but it wasn't bad. I picked up the Swords and Wizardry. I guess it's the last one that was put out by Frog God that was in kind of 4 volumes. I left it over at Studio B because I really don't have space for it here, and I'll pull it out at some point and go through it. Holmes Basic, that's what Daniel got. Yeah, I got that one. I think I paid $20 for it, and at least the cover price is like $75. But I was the only one to bid on it because I guess everybody probably has it. Everybody who wants it might have it already. So some of these things don't get bid up. I picked up another couple books, I think also for like $20, which is the minimum bid. So there are really some good deals you can kind of sneak in there and get. I picked up the Hyperborea books and got Jeffrey to sign it. He was kind enough to sign them for me. I missed the Against the Dark Master folks. Someone from them, I don't know if it was the publisher or the author, was there. I just missed them. I got to send them a note because they had a good ShireCon price deal, and I would have gotten it. I would have asked them to sign it if he's the author, and I would have liked to talk to them. But we just crossed paths because they were, I think, demoing the game, running it, and I was doing stuff. And by the time I broke free, I even tried to go back to the con after I left with Danny to get a coffee. He went home. I came back to the con. They'd taken all the booth stuff down. So I got to see if I can wrangle that up. But good stuff. So I'm going to talk about, I played in 3 games. I played it. And the funny thing, and I mentioned this also, 2 games were based on the same Robert E. Howard story. And I don't know if the story is called Horror from the Mound or Horror from the Hill. Two games I played, they were both based on the same story. They did not play out exactly the same, and it was interesting to see how these different ones riffed on it. The first one I played was using Weird Frontiers. This was run by DM Bloodsworth of what's the name of their channel? Hold on a minute. Unscripted and Unchained, I believe, is the name of their YouTube channel. Ran that game on Friday night. Weird Frontiers. Fun game. I enjoyed Weird Frontiers a lot. I was playing a Sin Eater, which is, I guess, kind of, it's not quite a priest, but has a priest-like role in that the Sin Eater's job, if you will, is to help souls transition from the world of the living to that of the dead. So as a Sin Eater, you show up, somebody's died, you can give them last rites, and if the soul is willing, then they will pass on to go meet your, in a sense, your patron, who is Karen or Charon, the ferryman of the underworld, and they will pass, and then they pass over. And by doing that, you have a coin, because the backstory of a Sin Eater is you yourself have died, and you became, I guess, a ferryman, sort of a junior ferryman, I guess, and now you've been sent back. And you have this coin, which is maybe the coin that you had been put on your eyes, right? So you have the coin, and then you also have a weapon, which is the weapon that you had when you first died. And these are a little bit special. Then you have some other powers that are mostly revolving around calling forth these kind of spectral ravens to do some different things. And the interesting thing about Weird Frontiers is that all your powers are unlocked from first level. So even though we were just playing first level characters, we had access to all of our powers, which was fun. There were 2 players who were also playing this class called Hellbillies, which I love. I love the name, and they had some really fun stuff. Kind of play. I mean, look, I suppose if you're of Appalachian descent or that's your culture, you might find it a little bit, because the part of it had to do with drinking. But I think they're playing with the tropes of westerns, and one of the guys was basically playing a version of like the kind of like the kind of old man that you find on the wagon train. Or when he was sitting next to me, and I said he reminded me so much, the way he was playing his character of Stumpy from Rio Bravo. If you can picture that kind of old, crusty guy with a beard, missing some teeth, maybe got his cowboy hat with the front flipped up, and he's saying, "Yo, you know what you gotta do now." Like, that's who he was playing. So I think taking it kind of in good fun, and then I think one of their powers, which got used to great effect, was called Ride the Lightning, where basically they take they got their little jug of, I assuming, some kind of moonshine. I could just see the 3 X's written across the front, and they guzzle the whole thing down, and they're able to just kind of go nuts, which is sort of fun. I think the only thing system-wise, I didn't get to see any magic because nobody got any magic. And I think DM Bloodsworth said that he simplified things down by he let us create our classes. So we create all our characters, create our classes. We were able to pick our own classes, create our characters. But I think of the choices that he brought with him, he omitted the magic using ones, I guess, for simplicity's sake, which I can totally understand, because there's enough going on with the powers. And they're kind of like, I felt like my Sin Eater's powers are sort of magic-y in a sense. So I thought that, and look, anything to help simplify what you're running at these cons, I think works. But everyone had kind of fun powers. The gunslingers seemed really thematic with the way they're able to fire multiple shots. And he had some mechanic where he was rolling like the DCC D3, because this is all based. Weird Frontiers is based on DCC, is a layers on top of DCC, so it uses the same DCC dice, stuff like that too. So just in case you're not aware, he had this thing where he's rolling the D3, and that added some bonus, and then you have to draw these cards from the deck as you fire bullets, which is also super interesting. If you get any number other than 8 is nothing. If you get face cards, those are bonuses. If you get the 8s or aces and 8s, dead man's hand, you basically roll on a fumble table. It's a really fun way to work with weapons fire that keeps it really interesting, keeps you on your toes a little bit. Because my Sin Eater, his special weapon was a rapier, and his normal weapon, he had a shotgun. And I was very much aware of what the gunslinger's doing because he's firing shots, he's drawing those cards. And I asked, well, when does the deck get reshuffled? And I was told when the deck runs out. So however long you're playing in a session, you're running through that deck, it's going to change the odds of both really good things happening potentially and those fumbles happening. Now, the way decks are constructed, right, your regular poker deck, you have a better chance of getting a face card than you do an ace or an eight. I would guess about double the chance, right? Because you have jacks, queens, and kings are all good. Or I guess, no, maybe 1/3 better. And then aces or eights on the other side are bad. So you do have a better chance of getting something good than bad. Both those odds change as you get through the night. And I remember a few times thinking, like, man, should I use that shotgun? Because he's hasn't pulled something good or bad in a while. And I'm thinking, like, is he going to pull? Like, what's coming up next? Because we're both using the same deck. And I can imagine if there are 4 players, if all 4 of us were rocking handguns or rocking guns of some sort, that being able to kind of read that deck and take a shot or whatever is going to be not necessarily super important, but it could be impactful. In fact, the poor NPC who was the priest died on one of those fumbles by the gunslinger. When the gunslinger, his fumble was that he shoots somebody, an ally. And I think he rolled dice and it turned out it was poor, I think his name was Father Julio or something. Poor Father Julio took one to the back of the head and just killed him. We were facing the bad guy of the adventure, which is a vampire, which I think is straight from the story. I think the antagonist in the Howard story is a vampire. And we sort of joked that at one point he has his cross up and then the gunslinger fumbles, shoots with the back of the head. And for a moment we could see the cross that he's holding up through his head because it's just been blown out before the poor guy toppled over. So it can get serious, but it was a lot of fun. It's a very simple adventure. And like I said, it was fun to then, having played that one, to then come to play the next one and see kind of what they changed. It was I would say it's a fun one-shot kind of /con adventure. Not a ton of choices, but still there's a little bit of investigation. We get a little bit of a tomb. We get some interaction with some of the locals. And then we get a little mini dungeon there where we in the mines where we ended up confronting the final vampire. And then a nice fight at the end to take down the vampire. And this is swig of watered down apple cider for the working man. So that was night 1. Day 2, I couldn't play in Daniel's game this year because he was running his game when I was playing in Hyperborea. And it was funny because we sat down and one of the guys who played in the game, same game as I did the night before, was sitting next to me. And he starts talking through, okay, this adventure, he had written it as part of a zine that was to benefit one of the founders or the founder of North Texas RPG Con who passed from cancer. And this was in sort of a zine that was, I'm not sure, was basically made, in honor of that particular person. And it's based on a Robert Howard story. And I'm kind of listening. And I remember looking at and I was looking at my phone at the ticket. And I was like, isn't that funny that I've got like Horror from the Hillock right after Horror from the Mound? I hadn't put it together yet. And then he's continuing on. He says, oh, yes. And this is based on a Robert Howard story. And suddenly I'm going, oh, well, wouldn't you know who won the Wouldn't you want to know wouldn't you know who won the pony on that one? And I turned to the guy, I was like, look at that. We played this game. We played the same story last night. But of course, he mentioned that he's changed the story from Robert Howard's one as well. And it was interesting because they did both have different takes on it. In this case, we had pre-gens. And I was playing a Moorish. What was my character class? It was not a sorcerer, but a warlock, a female Moorish warlock. I forget the guy who had played in the game last time was playing some kind of scout. We had an Eskimo pyromancer, and I forget the last guy. I forget what he was playing. Now, the one thing I have to say with Hyperborea, and I haven't read the book yet. I don't know. Now, I lived in North Africa, so when I see Moorish on there, or she's a Moor, I'm wondering, like, how are they handling this? Now, I think there are a couple of ways that people are dealing with this, and this is something I think has come up in the past. I think it's coming up, and I know at least for one Kickstarter, it's coming up. Mesoamerican based Kickstarter is coming up again. This idea of this is what happened in history, or this is what happened. This is how the books had it, right? This is kind of like Hyperborea has a lot of Lovecraft, a lot of different sources, and well, this is kind of what they had in it. And I don't know that that just for me is enough to say, well, okay, and he was using the antiquated spelling of Eskimo, where I know it's not even really, Eskimo is not even the word we use anymore. We use like Inuit or some other more specific word for a specific culture, but the wording that was on the sheet, and I see this because we all got to look at these pre-gens before we picked, is SQIMAUX, something like that. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not in love with the, hey, we're doing it because the book, or because the books had this. Well, the books were written by people at different times, and a lot of the stuff's gone by the wayside, and a lot of it for good reason. And these games are living games going forward. And I always think of an example. Well, what if I wanted to play Hyperborea with my daughter? Like, how long of a conversation? What kind of conversation do I have, and how long do I have to have it over these things about Eskimo? What does it mean? Why are they calling them that? Why do they, do they all have certain cultural things that they stick to? I don't know. It's not something that I love, but thankfully none of that really came up in the game, which is all I can talk about because I haven't read the books yet. I did get them. And, I felt the same thing a little bit with, the Moors, because like I said, I lived in that part of the world. I have friends who would match up with that description. So I'm kind of keenly aware and sensitive to portrayals, but again, I don't know what was in the books, but nothing came up in the game. The game was a lot of fun, and it was a different take, or a Hyperborea style take, I suppose, on that same story. Whereas in the Weird Frontier story, we essentially were playing, a band of cowboys out kind of righting wrongs kind of thing, and not so much a wild bunch, but I don't know, some other kind of maybe Magnificent Seven type who were sent to check in on a rancher who disappeared. In the Hyperborea one, we were more treasure seekers who had gotten a map fragment. We took a boat that left us off at a really kind of creepy town with a weird Lovecraftian statue in the middle of town that was very, very creepy. And we were eager to get the heck out of that town basically as soon as we got there. But it was a fun role play. The sort of leader of the town was super, super creepy. And, and Jeffrey was sort of playing it up with sort of like, we'd love to have you for dinner kind of things. And we were like, okay, we're getting that. And in fact, when we left town, instead of scouting ahead of us, the first thing we had to ask the scout to do is, hey, can you try to cover our trail behind us? And we'll maybe take a longer route just in case the townsfolk try to ambush us, and something like that. So we all thought, okay. And then in that game, so in the Weird Frontiers game, and we get to the ranch, the rancher's already dead, and then we sort of follow not the trail, but the mound isn't far from the ranch house, and then sort of shenanigans start up when we get to the mound. In the case of the Hyperborea game, the first thing that happened, and I don't know if this was just a random, a wandering creature check, but we run into this band of orcs, and the orcs essentially want us to pay a tax. Now, we'd already spent all our money on getting the horses that we had, getting us to the ranch, and frankly, and I'll take credit for that, because that was mostly, nobody had any money on their character sheet, basically, or very little, other than me as the warlock. I had the most coin, but I'd spent it all. We'd all spent it all. So we had nothing to pay the orcs. And after a couple of party members were sort of trying to intimate that we'd already paid the town, the orcs should take up their troubles with the town, and they weren't really buying it. I went a step further, basically said as much, which triggered some kind of I don't know what the check ended up being, if it was some kind of just some sort of what would we say? I don't know what we would call it, diplomacy or whatever we would call it, right? But some kind of basically, can you BS them check, which I critted on. Probably my best roll of the day. I rolled 12 on a 2d6 check. So the orcs went, after some consultations among themselves, went riding up their way, and so we were able to kind of dodge that encounter. When we got to the ranch, here in this case, the rancher was alive. So there is a little, all of a sudden, that diversion, and he's telling us, don't go to the mound, leave that mound alone. He says, but if you're dead set on going to the mound, and look, we're all aware as players, we're playing to play a con game, so the idea that we're going to turn around, we're like, listen, we're going to the mound. That's going to happen. He said, basically, okay, well, I can help you out with some shovels and some picks and some stuff, but can you help me with a problem first, which is I got a mountain lion problem. Now, I'm thinking already of what I already know from the other mound game, that I'm assuming there's a vampire at the end of this thing. So I'm thinking, is it really lions or I don't even think he said mountain lions. I think it was just lions. I'm thinking, is it really lions, or is the vampire just, killing these livestock and eating them, or draining them out? So I'm already kind of wondering, like, are these really lions or whatever? But we go check it out, and sure enough, there is a pack of lions there, and we get into combat with these pack of lions, and these pack of lions almost dust us. I mean, we were on that razor's edge of TPKing at the lions. I wasn't really thinking about it, and having not played Hyperborea before, I know it's based. Is it based on? I forget which version of D&D that it kind of was based on. But what I can tell you is, I wasn't thinking about that these are getting 3 attacks, claw, bite. And boy, like our one sort of, I don't know if he was a true fighter type, and the warlocks are actually kind of semi-fighters also, but he got a couple of lions on him, rolling multiple attacks for a couple rounds, claw, bite. And it was looking like, holy cow, this is going down. We're going down here. Luckily, we were able to kind of turn it around, able to finally get the lions, get a couple of them down. The rest fail a morale check, start to flee. We're able to kind of get them down into a crater and then take care of the rest, take care of the other ones. And man, it was one of those things that even though the battle was super close, it was also one of those things that only one of us was really hurt. It was just that if that person had fallen, it would have been a domino effect. So we're watching that first domino really teetered, but then we were able to hold it. So you wouldn't have known. It's kind of one of those games where you look at the final score and say, oh, this team must have really just beaten the pants off the other team. And then if you watch the game, you go, well, it really was a lot closer than that. And that was that kind of encounter. If you come back, you look and say, well, that guy got hurt a lot, but these guys are all fresh as daisies. But it's like, no, it was really close. But we did it. And we're able to rest up overnight at the rancher's house. And we go on to the mound. In this case, we had to clear the mound ourselves. We found some bones and a skull, so I was able to use one of the warlock's abilities, which was speak with the dead. So I was able to ask some stuff about what was going on inside the mound, and from that skull's information, we found out that there was a priestess that was buried in the mound. Now I don't know if because I only had 3 questions. I think I asked about was there treasure in there? Was there who was buried in there? And I didn't ask if there was a vampire in there or not. I just assumed that the vampire was either there or if there was a mine, because I don't know. I have no recollections of the Howard story. I imagine I must have read it, because I know I went through a phase where I read pretty much all the short stories. But enough time and distance, I wasn't sure. But I asked kind of adventuring questions. So we open up the mound, and a cold gust of wind comes up. And sure enough, when we get inside, there's an indentation that was there of something that was there was no longer there. So of course, okay, all right, we probably let the vampire out. Now, I don't know what else in terms of an adventure, I'm not sure what else we were supposed to do, right? What is we're there to open the tomb. I don't know if some of us had some kind of power we could have used, and we could have had it out with the vampire in the tomb. I tend to think that was just going to happen, right? The whole concept is we were going to the mound. To get in the mound, we had to open it. Maybe there was a secret door or something else, but I don't think we didn't make our checks. If there was one, we didn't find it. So basically, it was like, well, we're going to open it up because that's what we're here for. The vampire got out. I kind of tend to think maybe I'll get to ask Jeffrey at some point if there was some other way we could have handled that. But whatever. The vampire is out. We go inside. There's a magic dagger that's sitting on the priestess's chest. It's clearly magical. I used my detect magic. Oh yeah, that's magical. And of course, we're assuming it's trapped. And sure enough, it was. And when one of the guys picked it up, the priestess came to life for a moment, and basically went at the guy, and he failed to save, and his heart basically exploded in his chest. Character death number 1. Well, we feel bad, but we kind of joked, 3-way split. So he'd picked up a bunch of treasure, so we got the treasure he picked up, got the dagger. Now we go visit the rancher, who of course is now desiccated, as was the rancher in the version of the game that we played the night before, or at least 2 of us had played the night before. And the vampire's on the loose. But of course we can't, I guess it's in some, I don't know. And again, I don't know in Hyperborea, I don't know, which is kind of fun, but I don't know if we are supposed to know, what are vampires' powers? I don't know. We don't know. Or at least I don't know. Nobody else seemed to know. So I don't know if they have mist form, if they're flying, or they're just taking bat form. I don't know. It's okay, the vampire's not here. Where is he gone? How far away? How far could he have flown? We don't know. I don't know. So we do the best thing we can see, which is try to get for town. And we also take the guy's cattle with him, which I was kind of hoping that the vampire came back might grab some cattle instead of grabbing us, allowing us to get to town. But I also thought, like, well, we've got this cattle here. The rancher's dead. Might as well see if we can. I had, and I think a couple other people agreed. I had a 3-pronged plan with the cattle. Prong 1. If the vampire's looking for easy blood, maybe he takes the cattle. Now, again, I don't know vampires in this setting. I don't know whether that's got to be, intelligent creature blood or something other humans only. I don't know. But I thought that was number 1. Number 2, we know that those orcs are out there. And if the orcs did go back to town, they're going to know that we lied to them. So maybe we can make nice by offering up all this cattle. And then 3, maybe we can take the cattle back to town and we have some kind of bargaining chip with the town, or maybe we'll need to create some kind of diversion and we'll have that going on. So there's kind of like a 3-pronged plan with that. But spoiler alert, we don't make it back to town. So we're camping. Night 1, camping. One of us is on watch. Here's like a little, come on here, boy, from a bush. Fails their save, goes into the bushes, lights out. And I like the way Jeffrey did this. It was very funny. I think to all of us, he's like, oh, okay. So, you fail your save versus spells. So you hear this voice calling to you from the bush. You go in, there's a beautiful lady. It's, you feel instantly in love with her, and then, fade to black. We're like, is that it? And then Jeffrey goes, and the next morning. So like, okay, like, that's all right. I guess that's it then, and then we kind of yell out 2-way split. So now we're there, and we pull the guys. We see his boots sticking out of the bush. We pull him out, and he's all desiccated. He's done. All right. Now we're like, we really need to get to town because we don't feel like we can wait. We don't want to do another night or 2 of this because we're going slowly because of the cattle. So now we're just kind of pushing them. I think we're saying, like, look, I don't care if we lose some cattle along the way. Let's just get there. And so night's falling. We're not at town yet, and we're like, you know what? We just need to. We're gonna keep pushing because we saw what we already saw what happened the last night. Now we only have 2 people to potentially watch. So it's gonna be bad. But then the vampire confronts us with some like dire wolves. It seemed like there's some kind of wolf eyes. I think there were multiple things, but those creatures didn't attack us. So now it's on finally combat with the vampire. Only now we're down to 2. So it's not looking good. And of course, it ended up being poorly. I went down first, but I didn't die. I think I was dying at -4. The other guy died, I think, maybe a round or 2 rounds after me, and he was dead. And then the epilogue was that the vampire brought me back as his companion, and the lasting images is of us walking towards town, ready to dine, right? Like, let's dine in town tonight, shall we? Which I thought was a good ending because I could see in my mind, I'm like, that's fitting because I would like to. If I could have had my druthers, I'd want to take care of that town one way or another. So I feel like in my own mind, the ex-warlock now vampire got to give that town a little what for. Very fun, very kind of brutal, but in a good way. I think everyone went down in an interesting way. And I feel like that's one of the things. If I'm thinking in kind of a one-shot or sort of a con game, that's what I want. If you're going to go down towards the end if you can. Look, it can't be. We might have gone down to those lines. I mean, heck, if things had gone differently, we might have gone down to the orcs. Maybe there's a possibility because he had stuff going on in that town that we might not have even made out of the town, all of which are fun. But I want to say, like, no one went down to something that ultimately was just not fun in some way, right? Everything was kind of, that kind of weird town. I was joking that, are they building a Wicker Man in the background kind of thing? The orcs, interesting. So, that was good. And then the adventure was fun. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. It wasn't. It was. It's a linear story like the other one, right? You go, you find the rancher. I could see. Again, I'll have to go back and read the actual story again, but you could see where you pick the moment. It's okay. There's a town where you start, and maybe the short story doesn't have a town in it at all. I don't know, but there's kind of a mystery of the ranch, and then a mound, and there's a vampire involved with the mound. In the Weird Frontiers game, the vampire was a conquistador, a dead conquistador. In this game, I don't think there was any specificity given other than it's just a vampire, and you kind of deal with it. And each one kind of took different directions, but we all had choices. It wasn't completely linear. You go, okay, what do we want to do in town? What do we want to do with the rancher? what do we want to do with these different things, right? We had things to do, which makes you feel like you're playing in something other than just kind of a corridor, even if ultimately that's what it is, because you can definitely make a linear line, town, ranch, mound, whatever. It feels like you've got more going on, which I think for a one-shot's really good. I guess if you want to say that there was that, if we were playing with a little bit of that, what do you want to call it? That illusion of choice in a good way. But I think right, and I say that because I'm not usually, not that I dislike it so much, but I find that it's not really how I want to play and run most games, just because I think it will catch up to you. Like, I'm thinking back at the game. Hey, Brian Smith. I'm thinking back at the game, and I can recognize, okay, maybe I didn't have as much choice here as I felt like. But in a con game, all good. All good, because we got a limited time and everyone's pretty focused on let's get to the stuff, right? Someone here is kind enough to run a game for us. Let's get in there and we're gonna play nice with everything, right? As opposed to maybe your home game or a more campaign where both you're gonna feel free to want to maybe deviate a bit more, and you're gonna expect, I think, for the most part, for the world to acknowledge that. Now, the last game I played in, and this is another con, I think this happened last time, where I bailed out on the last game, and I apologize. It was a Dark Sun game. I was interested in it, but I was kind of ready. I think for this, and I'll have to remember this when I go to, say, PAX Unplugged, and if I'm going to play a bunch of games, I got to space them out more, because the way the con is, it's like 4-hour game, 1 hour break or so, 4-hour game, 1 hour break, 4-hour game. And that's a lot in one day. And even the 1 hour break, by the time you go, maybe get something to eat, look around at the silent auctions, do something, it's like that hour's over. You're already back in it. And that's a little much for me. And I know there were some people I'm sure who did it. I think a lot of people may pick their spots a bit more. So I think next time maybe I'll pay more attention to which games are playing in which slots, time slots, and kind of pick, okay, I'm going to do 2 on the Saturday. Maybe I'll do the early and the late, or I'll do what I did today, the early and the middle. And, I'll kind of space it out more, and then not grab a chair from someone who might want to play in that game. And then me feeling like finally I'm too tired. So I'm going to bail out. This was Rob Connolly, AKA Bat in the Attics game that I played in. This was called, what was it? Something to do with the Demon Wolf. And this was in his same majestic. He changed the name of it. And hold on a minute. Hold on a second. The rules, I don't know what he calls his setting. I'm just trying to pull the book out. I didn't bring most of my books home that I got. I left them over at Studio B because they're just big and I don't have room. But the one book I did bring back with me, because it's small, was the one that Rob was kind enough to give to me. And then he also signed it, which is the Majestic Fantasy RPG. Now, the rules are fine. I guess this is one like Hyperborea I had never played before. It was interesting to play. The mechanics are obviously very familiar, and like I said, I forget which version of D&D Hyperborea is based on. To me, the fun or the interesting stuff for me about Hyperborea was the setting and seeing these interesting different classes and kind of cultural stuff. That was, I think, for Hyperborea at least, what immediately caught my attention with that. That's what I'm kind of interested. Right, that's the thing that interests me. And then if there was anything mechanically different. And I don't think we ran into much where it's like, oh my gosh, that's a way different mechanic than I'm used to. Not to say that they're not there in the Hyperborea rules. I haven't read them yet, but it just didn't come up in the game. Like everything from a mechanical standpoint was pretty straightforward. In the Weird Frontiers game, there's the kind of DCC dice oddness, which they definitely played into. And then the cards, which is really cool. And there's also, you're supposed to use chips for, I think, wounds and kind of banes or something like that. But he forgot the chips, but we didn't end up getting any of those. And I don't know if we didn't get any because he didn't have the chips or however that worked, but those didn't come up. So there's kind of interesting things. Now, the Majestic Fantasy game we played in, again, the rules are all pretty much what you might expect. There might be a couple of tweaks. He does fumbles in an interesting way, and I don't know if that's just him doing it or whether it's in the books. But in the fumbles, like you roll, and if you fumble, then you roll a d6, and I guess depending, I couldn't quite tell, and I couldn't tell if this is just some kind of house rule he runs in his head, or whether there's some table in here. But it seemed like he was just kind of riffing on whatever you rolled, and then what weapon you're using, and he would kind of just adjudicate based on, I guess, the die number you rolled and the weapon you're using, kind of what that fumble looked like. I don't know if it's something that really is in here or if it's in his house rule or whatnot. But other than that, you've got a few wrinkles, but it is essentially, I think he says it's based on swords and wizardry. And I know he's layered some stuff on top of there, but the thing that I really appreciate about his con games, and this is now the second one that I've run in, is really he does a really masterful job of adding a lot of open world elements into your con game, which is something that, you know, when I think about on a practical level, and I've said this before, like, look, if I'm going to run a con game, right, we need to be very hyper focused, and we want to be, you know, you want to keep everybody on track. He's been able to find ways to give us a real taste for the setting and a real openness and allow a lot of decision making that I think more than, say, maybe your average con game. And I haven't played in a bunch of con. I haven't played in that many, right? So I don't have some great vast body of con game participation to call upon, but it's definitely different than the other games that I've played in. So I want to talk about this one in particular because I think he just does such a good job, and I really enjoy, and I think his setting is one that's very near to the kind of settings that I like. So I think that helps also. It's just really well done. Now, he has one thing in his game which came up, and it was really interesting, but I think it has the potential for the same kind of issues that having, you know, Moorish and Esquimau characters in Hyperborea is that, and this came up in the game, is he has a peoples who the locals in the region we're playing call beggars, but it's more like Gypsy. Hey, Daisy. Yeah, I don't know why I'm lagging either. Hopefully my audio's okay. I don't know why the video's been poor, but just bear with me if you can. I don't know why everything else I should be right as rain. I'm all by myself at home, and I should be like the best connections I could possibly have, but it hasn't turned out that way. So hopefully you can bear with me. And, you know, I'll see how the recording looks from afterwards. So anyway, back to the game. And again, I apologize for any audio or video difficulties, but I can't figure it out, so I'm just going to roll with it. They call them beggars, but it's kind of like using, you know, a gypsies as a term. It doesn't mean a beggar. And he had to take a minute to kind of explain to us when we heard beggars what that meant. Because I think all of us at the table were kind of thinking like, oh, they're beggars. You know, they're like beggars, because we were like, we're trying to find, because at one point, let me get into that. I guess I'll go through this. But anyway, it came up, and I thought it played out really well with our approach to it. It makes it a very interesting game. It definitely adds some layer to it, but it also could be something that can go south in a big way. So something that I guess he's very much in tune with his setting. I think it worked. But like, I don't know that I would use beggar term for a people. It just seems a little bit, you know, but I'm sure they have their own name for themselves. I'm sure it's meant to be pejorative because of just the setting. But I was a little bit like, when I heard what it was, I was like, oh, that's a little bit interesting. And of course he had to explain it, right? If he'd used a term like these are the blobby blue people, we might have been like, okay. Like, and, you know, and what came up was one of the characters, NPCs, was real anti-beggar people. But by calling them beggars, it kind of puts them on the back foot just as a player, right? In your brain, your spirit, oh, these are beggars. And you're like, okay, well, they're kind of like, okay, so beggars, not knowing any of the context, are sort of seedy. It kind of works. Like, yeah, they're beggars, right? They're probably bound to be seedy. But it's like, no, there's this whole culture of people. And it's like, okay, well, what you know, kind of a little bit of like, what are we doing here a little bit? It all worked out fine, but it's something that I might say like, man, I might go back and change that. Just like if I was running a game, I probably would use Romani and not Gypsy, right? If I was talking about them. In any case, Daisy asked what kind of game this was. We were playing. Well, you might not be able to see it because my video quality is crud, but this was Majestic Fantasy, and by Rob Connolly, aka Bat in the Attic, if you've heard of the Bat in the Attic blog. And the scenario was, I forget the exact wording, but something to do with a demon wolf. But now getting into, and it's a tabletop role-playing game. If you're totally, just to square that circle in case it's still a question. So now into the scenario. So here's what Rob does. We have this, and he has a little hex map, a player-facing hex map. And it's not terribly detailed. It doesn't have the hex symbology, but it does have hex markings. But basically, it's like a little regional map. And he'll say, okay, you're here, and a point where the map is. And you're in the court of this baron, who is basically the baron of this whole, everything we're seeing, I think, on his map is part of the baron's domain, dominion, his lands, whatever you want to call it. And we're there to see the baron for something or other. And I don't know. I think he had us being able to meet up. He had a little bit of an intro bit where we could kind of say who our characters' names were. And then I think what we were asking the baron for, like a little preamble. But, you know, I mean, and look, most of us, I'm looking at my sheet and I was playing a cleric. So I think I said, well, I'm looking for alms or something, right? And we're all fourth level too, I think, or most of us, maybe depending on XP. I was fourth level. There might've been some third level folks in there. I'm not sure how that all shook up. We were all about that level, third, fourth. Maybe there was even a fifth level. I'm not sure. You know, we're all to see the baron for something, but we didn't, you know, we were just making up kind of stuff like, oh, I'm here for this. Oh, I'm here for that. Well, pretty much the baron's like, that's great, but you could do this for me first. And of course, we're given now our objective for this session, which is some village, one of these villages out there. And again, you know, Rob points and the village is over here. Village won't go and get the harvest. It's harvest season. It's fall harvest. They need to bring in the harvest, but they're refusing because they're being terrorized by some kind of demon wolf or some kind of wolves. I don't even think they even knew or even said it was a demon wolf. Like, okay, it's demon or some wolves terrorizing these villagers, and they are now refusing to bring in the harvest. So you guys go do that, and then maybe I'll do, you know, what you're asking for. And, and there's a whole thing like I sent my huntsman to take care of it, and apparently he was just getting drunk, and he didn't do the job, and so now it's your, now I'm looking for somebody to do it, and I guess you're up. So you go take care of this. Great. So basically, in terms of the adventure structure, we've been given our job. Go to the village. We could see where it is on the map. Go there, figure out what's going on with wolves harvest. The main thing is, get the harvest in, and presumably that means we'll have to take care of the wolves in some way. Right? We don't know what's going on with the wolves, but if it's wolves, we can see there's a clear connection between villagers not bringing in the harvest because of wolves. So at some point we got to do something with the wolves. So, okay, we've got kind of our marching orders, but at this point, the board's kind of wide open. Well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Now, of course, we're not going to blow off, especially in a con game, we're not going to blow off our main objective. So of course we're going to head towards the village. I think we're on horseback, or we got horses, and we head off, and there are roads going through. Okay, take the road and now we're on the road, and we pass through a crossing. I think the place was called like Denison's Crossing or something, a little town. Again, we're pointing on the map, and then he has another little mini map which shows the town. And this was kind of nice because it kind of, I'm not someone who loves town maps because I don't really use them, but in this case it was a very simple map, and it really just showed some of the major things that were in the town, which was not much. Kind of there's like I don't know if there was a bridge crossing there or what the crossing part was, but there was a tavern, and we decided to stop in the tavern, get a little drink, get some of the road dust off of our tongues, sort of thing. And we spy that somebody is looking at us, kind of, being sort of shifty. We make some rolls, we're doing some checking out, and we end up cornering the guy, and it turns out that this is a guy who works for the Duke, who is sort of above the Baron. And the Duke's got concerns about some banditry that's been going on. And that's kind of what they're looking for. And he's inquiring of us, kind of trying to see, do we work? Are we here for the Baron? And kind of what's the Baron up to? So, we're all sort of trying to not give up a lot of information, but get some information, do a little wheeling dealing. So now we kind of have this sub objective, like, okay, so our main mission, right, where the Baron has tasked us with finding out, getting this harvest in and kind of figuring out that problem. But we don't really have a deal with the Duke, but maybe if we can figure out what's going on with these bandits and do something with that, then maybe when we got something with the Duke. So we're given, now we have kind of a sub objective. The other thing I like is it's like you're introducing these different forces on the scenario. So we have the one force that's pushing from one direction. That's the Baron. Now we have the Duke who's pushing in, but from a slightly different angle. And we don't necessarily have to. We could ignore that guy, but now we have this other thing, but they're not totally aligned. It's not like the Baron says, go defeat the wolves and save my harvest. I'm going to get to the town, and the Duke's guy just reinforces that same thing. Yeah, go get the Duke, go get the Baron, the wolves, and bring back the harvest. Doesn't even really give us more information on that. It's not even just like someone's saying, now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what you're trying to do. Oh, wolves, let me tell you about the wolves. Let me give you a little extra. It wasn't really like that, but now it's like, okay, now we got these bandits. In a scenario like this, I think all of us are thinking like, well, is there a connection between the bandits and the wolves? Maybe. We don't know. But now we have this kind of, they're both, we feel like maybe pushing in similar directions, but they're not exactly aligned. Now we go a little bit further. Between this crossing and the village we're supposed to get to, we find that some poor guy has been attacked and it looks like apparently mauled by wolves. His cart's been tipped over and it seems like looted in some way. And he's got big claw marks on his back from some sort of, one presumes to be a wolf attack. So now as we're looking at that, one of us, so we're kind of scouting around looking, we're looking at, okay, well, it seems kind of clear. Okay, wolves, right? Wolves are still at work. Now we talked to the huntsman who was in the stockade, in the stocks in the town that we started in, and he had mentioned that they'd killed a whole bunch of wolves, and he thought he had it solved, and that's why he'd stopped looking around and started drinking. So we're not sure like how many wolves are left in the environment, like, or could there be more wolves, or like how was the huntsman exaggerating? But obviously there's at least seems like there are some. So we're looking around for tracks, and we're also wondering, well, where's the horse or mule or whatever was pushing this cart? And someone rolls really well in a kind of perception check and finds that the tracks had been cleverly kind of hidden or obscured around the wagon, but then after some little not that far distance, they stopped hiding the tracks. So we're able to find the tracks, which went down to an area by the river, and we find a bandit hideout. Haha, okay. So now we're thinking, oh, the bandits. Okay, well, these bandits is there a connection between the wolves and the bandits? Because we found wolf marks on the corpse and then tracks that lead to a bandit camp. We still don't know. Did the bandits just come afterwards? Right? Did the wolf take down the guy and then bandits come in and just say, hey, easy, like vultures, and just kind of clear out the site afterwards? Don't know. But we kind of we try to sort of sneak up on the bandits, and I offered myself as bait because there was some amount of cover. And so everyone with missile weapons was kind of hiding in this brush. And then and then they had me because I didn't have any missile weapons, and I'm kind of heavily armored. So I thought, okay, well, I'll be I thought someone was going to come with me, but then it ended up being like everyone else was brush, and I'm all by myself. So, okay. So then I'm walking up and I'm kind of trying to get their attention from a distance. And in fact, one of the other characters messed up their stealth roll, so it made noise. So I kind of tried to cover up for the noise, and I succeeded. I go walking up to the bandits, or I start kind of walking far away, and the bandits call me over. And there's a little bit of miscommunication because I thought like as I'm walking up, maybe they'll do something, but they let me like walk all the way up, and I'm kind of looking at them like, and now of course the bandits like, oh, why don't you strip for us, father? And I'm like, look at them, like, are you guys gonna do something yet? Like, what are you waiting for, right? And so before I start to strip into my skivvies or civvies, whatever, they finally open up and we go into combat, and we end up taking down the bandits. And we go into the bandits. They were outside a cave. We go in the cave. We see a bunch of stuff that they stole. And we also find some pelts that have been made into a suit and some sharp claws, right? Oh, okay. Oh, well, look at that. Were the wolves really the bandits all along? Now, I confess to a little bit of meta gaming on my part. I'm looking, I'm like, the session's not even half over. Maybe we're doing half over. Like, I don't think we found the bandit. I don't think we found the wolf. I don't think I also have a lot of stories where you think it's, they find the first clue, which is like, look, it's actually was, this person pretending to be a wolf, and then there actually is a wolf. I'm like, I don't think this is the wolf. And I remember telling other players, like, maybe we should kind of, if we're going to tell people this is it, we should probably soft sell the wolf aspect, because I'm not sold on that's what it is. But we take the guys, we turn them in at that crossing, and we think, okay, we should probably continue on to this village. We can let them know whether we did. And then, of course, we can also, if it's not them, we can continue on. Well, of course, short story made extremely long, of course, that they're not actually the wolf. But before we could figure that out, we had to go to the village, talk to the village where the local church leader, their local church elder, was the one who was really anti this ethnic group, who were like, they were like the beggars in this game are actually, it seemed like kind of nomadic sort of horse peoples, or peoples who are on horseback a lot, who I guess they're dishonored, they lose their horses. So they're kind of wandering around. And they feel a lot like, again, you're kind of Romani or Tinkers and sort of, what is it in Wheel of Time? What they kind of Tinkers, that kind of folk. He wants to blame them, even though we have no evidence of that at all. I'm kind of looking around, and I think two is like, are we going to have more wolf attacks? Like, what's going on with the wolves? We try to do that. So we end up having to go. He ends up then going off and trying to basically start a fight with the beggars, and we are actually able to prevent it. The beggars then tell us that the reason why they're kind of here is because a demon wolf killed the son of their leader. And we're wondering, like, are you sure it's a demon wolf or this or that? And they acknowledged that they had done some dealings with the bandits, and they knew that couldn't be the bandits because the bandits didn't start their mischief with wolf pelts until after the attack. So we're like, okay, we still have a wolf, a loose kind of. You saw that dark shadow in the corner. If you could even see it, because my video quality stinks. That's my cat Bruce. So we end up having to go to this mages conclave, and then we were able to kind of we find some more evidence that then wraps it all up that there actually is a demon wolf, and then we finish the session with a grand fight with the demon wolf, which we did emerge victorious. We had to fight this kind of apprentice and the demon wolf. Kind of like the apprentice, this mage apprentice had gone bad and rogue. She's trying to finish some ritual. When we get there, we're able to kill her, I guess, before she finishes the ritual, but maybe not. I'm not sure how that and other ways it could play out, how it might play out, but we have to take down the wolf. Then out of both of their kind of corpses arise some other sort of demonic form that we have to then take out. And that was the game. So I guess the fascinating thing about Rob's game is how he's able to give us some kind of open world things. We really, really feel empowered to take on this task and kind of do it. Like, there's not one way to do it, right? When I talk about like horror from the hill or horror from the mound, whatever, there's kind of a linear path. Yeah, we can. What do we help the guy? No. Do we go fight the lions? Yes or no. Do we help the rancher? Yes or no. Do we do this? Yes or no. But ultimately, the path is very linear. Rob's game, it's more like a web. Do we go, like, where do we go? Right. Okay, we've heard about text. So I think the most linear part is when we leave the Baron, who's not going to go to the village? That's kind of where you have to go, right? Go to the village and see what happens. So is someone going to go, I think we're going to go here first? No, they're probably going to go to the village. So there is that part where you're going to start out fairly linearly, and then you're going to get to, presumably, if everyone's doing kind of what they're supposed to do, right? You're kind of following the impetus of the story, and there's no reason not to. You've been given kind of a direct order, so you go to do it. You're going to get to that crime scene between the crossing and the village. You hit the crime scene. Once you hit that crime scene where you find the guy with the big scrapes on his back, there's no one thing to do. Maybe you take that guy back to the crossing. You take his corpse, you take the cart, and you alert the authorities, and you do something there. That's one thing to do. Maybe you leave it there and you continue on to the village because you say, like, well, it's still happening, but our deal isn't with this guy, because this guy ultimately was not our mandate. He wasn't in the village. He didn't impact the harvest as far as we knew. A horrible accident, to be sure, not our problem. That could be another way to do it. We ended up going to the bandits and following that trail. And it's possible that you might examine the crime scene and not find the track to the bandits. That's also a possibility. We went to the bandits, and then we did some other stuff. Then we went back to the crossing, then went to the village. It's possible, because we didn't do this, even though we captured some of the bandits alive. We didn't question them. That was something we failed to do. We didn't question the bandits. If we questioned the bandits, it's possible the bandits would have given up the beggars, and we could have gone from the bandits straight to the beggars. And then the beggars kind of point us in the direction of the kind of mages conclave. So you could potentially do everything you need to do to solve the problem without even going to the village at all. Or you could go straight to the village. Then you get to the village, and it's like, okay, well, the village, the guy who has he's out for the beggars, right? So he goes to fight the beggars. In our case, we went out to stop him, and we kind of interposed ourselves between both sides. We're like, hey, man, you need to go back to the town, do what you need to do. We'll kind of deal with this. And by dealing with this, we kind of we sort of talked to the beggars, and the beggars are basically like, look, we'll leave if you help us find out what happened to our my son, kind of thing. And so we kind of made a deal with them. But you could play those a bunch of different ways. maybe you find the demon wolf without going to the wizard's conclave first. I'm not sure. Like, obviously he has a lot of input on what he's going to do in any given time. But I guess my point being is that you have this big web of possibility over what you can do. And it's still manageable within the time frame of the con, which I guess is the impressive part. That there's enough, because your task is focused. And I think we played well in terms of staying on task, even though you're put in towns where you can. I think the danger of putting these things out there is that you get too engrossed in the little minutia and you forget what you're doing. Oh, I'm going to go in the tavern. I'm going to have a drink. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you forget, like, hey, man, we got a purpose. Like, the group was very good about not taking too many detours. I mean, the detour we took following the tracks is we thought that would lead us to something to help us on our path, which it did. We didn't just follow it just to kind of goof or just be like, I just want to see what's out there. Like, you're kind of focused, but within that, you do have this little area that's just open to you. Hey, you want to go here first? You want to go here first? You want to go this? You want to go that? And his game last year was like that as well. So it was just a lot of fun. I really appreciate what he's doing. It definitely gives me ideas for maybe how I could run a game if I wanted to run a game kind of in the style of what I like to run myself, but still within the realm of a con kind of time frame, i.e. 3 to 4 hours. That's not more linear. Like there's a path there. Now, I don't know how often it's successful. It was successful in the 2 times that I've been a part of it. Maybe the other games that were less successful. You probably have to play with your audience. I think the one thing is, in this con, you're playing with a bunch of people who've been playing a long time. I think everyone's pretty experienced. Everyone kind of knows what they're doing. And I think everyone's very conscious of, hey, well, I'm playing a con game. And you think that would be like, well, of course, everyone would be conscious that you're playing a con game. But it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always prevent people from being goofs or deciding just to do whatever. And so it's not a given that you're going to get a group of 4 or 5 people and everyone's like, hey, man, we're here for the con game. We're here to play this wonderful scenario that's presented for it. So we're going to play the scenario. It doesn't always work out that way, even though it should. It doesn't. But in this case, it did. And it was fun. And I really appreciate it. And I really like his setting. It feels very grounded, even though there are fantastic elements. Obviously, last time there was some kind of fairy incursion, fey incursion, whatever. And then this one, there's a demon wolf, but you have wizard conclaves and whatnot, but it feels very grounded. You feel these political moves being made, and it feels like you are kind of in this world that has things moving. Some of it are above your pay grade, some of them are below your pay grade, and you're empowered because you're on we're on the Baron's business. It kind of empowers us above just your peasantry or whoever's just walking around. So we do have a little bit of authority behind us, but we're not like kings of the universe. We still have to deal with the fact that we're dealing with this church elder who's basically the same level as I am, or maybe within levels, because we're both like my cleric's title was an elder and this person's title was an elder. So we were kind of on equal footing, but I couldn't tell them what to do. And I had to tell the beggars that I said, listen, we kind of were able to kind of send him home, but he's going to make more trouble and I can't stop him because he's the same rank as I am. I can't outrank him, and he's going to appeal to higher authorities, and maybe they'll also agree with him. So we can only kind of hold him off. We can't do that. And that's part of that kind of playing in that political game, as opposed to maybe you might think in a D&D sense, it's like, oh, we'll just kill him. It's like, no, there are hierarchies and power structures within this world, and we're all playing nice with that. We're all playing within those structures because our characters my character's a cleric and he might hate that other cleric, but I can't just break ranks and just smite him where he stands just because. So we got to kind of do what we can within the strictures that we're given, and we all played well with that, which I think is great dungeon or world crafting and refereeing on the part of Mr. Conley. And if we want to give us some credit as players, I think we played it well. That's ShireCon. So I know I'm over time, but I do want to at least do a couple, because I said I would do a mailbag, and I have a couple of questions. So I got some stuff in the bag, not questions, but comments. Let me see here. And I if I had more wherewithal, I would have kind of done some kind of labeling, with some labeling to make it easier. But from the mailbag, let me pull out the couple of things I wanted to pull out here. Hold on a second. Okay, so one I've mentioned this a couple of times. But, I didn't take offense to Wizards of the Coast's Thaco the Clown joke, but people have. And Ryan Nielsen, 7955, I think, commenting on one of my streams where I must have made some kind of Thaco the Clown reference, said that they think the issue with Thaco the Clown was principally who was doing the mocking. Wizards of the Coast, which has nothing but disdain for the legacy of older D&D. Now, this is one of those things where I feel like, I'm not going to say I break ranks with grognards, but I guess I just feel differently. I have never felt that Wizards of the Coast has nothing but disdain for the legacy of older D&D. Obviously a lot of people feel that way, and I have no doubt that Ryan is correct, and that it makes sense to me as why people would hate the fact they're making jokes, because as often as with jokes, if it's someone who's joking, a lot of times who is making the joke is as important as the joke itself. So sure, lots of folks have been cracking jokes about Thaco forever. I mean, since the 80s, since it was new, making jokes about it. But you're doing it from a place of love and respect and whatever, versus someone who you feel like is doing it from a mean-spirited place, somewhere that doesn't have love for it, and they're kind of maybe just hitting it as kind of low-hanging fruit, or just taking a jab at someone. So I get that perspective. I don't share it. Okay, I don't know. I'd be curious to know what folks look at and think this is what shows me. Like, I'd like to know, well, what is it? What is it that you or anyone feels that Wizards has done that shows that they have nothing but disdain for the legacy of older D&D? I'd like to know what those things are. I have a feeling they're going to be things that I'm not going to feel strongly about. I have a feeling I don't want to. Maybe I won't even say what I feel like it. If Ryan or you or someone else is here in the chat now, or you comment on this later, let me know. I'd love to explore it a bit. I don't have that feeling. I don't think. I mean, Wizards is their a company. They're going to do things. Corporations are going to corporate, right? But in terms of showing that the culture around that company has nothing but disdain for the legacy of older D&D, I'd like to see what are the proofs? What have you got for me to demonstrate this? And I'm not trying to do this from kind of a show me show me the proof. I am genuinely curious, what you've seen, especially if it's not from individual personalities who are associated with Wizards of the game, but from actual Wizards themselves. I don't feel it. I don't know that they have a profound love for older versions of the game. I feel like that they have a desire to make money off their IP and what they can get from it. But on the other hand, I don't feel that the same. So I haven't felt that. So maybe that's why it doesn't bother me. But it's obvious that some folks do, and that will clearly go a long ways towards explaining why they have the reaction to those jokes that they have. That was that one. Where's the other one? Oh, here we go. So the next thing from the next mail from the mailbag was Tag 1080 asked, "Do I have any favorite methods of signposting what the narratives are doing behind the scenes?" So this was talking to me. I had a stream last week where I was talking about layering narratives on your sandbox. So that's the reference. So that's the context for that. And he asked, "Do you have any favorite methods of signposting what the narratives are doing behind the scenes, i.e. when the party is not interacting with a narrative directly?" So a narrative might be something like, hey, I think the example I used in my stream was, hey, the cult of Orcus is trying to summon Orcus into our realm. That's the narrative. And now behind the scenes would be, well, if the players aren't interacting with the narrative, they hear that, oh, okay, the cult of Orcus is doing that. Great. We're going to go do this other thing instead. How can you, or what can you do, or what methods are my favorites for signposting that narrative hasn't stopped dead in its tracks? It's still happening. And he continues, "I find my players don't like it if the cult summons a demon and they didn't feel like they were well enough informed." So just to kind of, drill down to it, basically, right? So you have narratives that are running throughout your sandbox, and these narratives are happening. If nobody does anything to prevent them, either PCs, NPCs, or otherwise, these narratives are going to continue going until they finish. In the case of the cult of Orcus summoning Orcus, if somebody, players or otherwise, doesn't stop them, then Orcus gets summoned at the end of the narrative. Or somebody prevents them and they don't. But that's happening. If the party decides instead they'd like to go explore the Caves of Chaos or take a nice 5-hour tour to the Isle of Dread. That's fine. The cultists are still happening. So, the question is, basically, well, the players may not appreciate it if something horrible happens, and they basically weren't kind of kept up to date on what, that they're getting closer. They're getting, there's no doomsday clock saying, 5 days until Orcus is summoned, and 4 days, 3 days. So, what can you do? Well, I mean, there's a few different ways to do it. I don't know if I have a favorite, but you have a bunch of options. One is the rumors change. So they go into town and, Monday the 1st. Oh, okay, what's going on? Oh, yeah, we think some cult of Orcus is out there operating out of the graveyard outside of town. Really spooky. They're doing weird rituals at night. Somebody heard tell of Orcus, and they're summoning him. Oh, that's interesting. I think I prefer to do this other thing. Now, a week passes or 2 weeks, and you can roll dice to see on these time frames, how much progress is being made. All right, they come back to town. Hey, so what's going on? That's now what? This is Monday the 8th. Well, it's been a week, and now there are weird red lights that are glowing at the in the graveyard at all times of day or night. It's really weird, and the sun doesn't even seem to really shine there. And we've had some tremors. We've not had an earthquake in living memory, but we've had several tremors going on. Not sure what's happening over there. You sure you don't want to help us out and at least go give it a look-see? Nah, we're good. We got some other thing going on out here that we're interested in. Okay. Now it's maybe it's Monday the 15th. Maybe they come back to town and there's just no one's in the tavern anymore. The town's kind of deserted. There's sort of a swirling dark cloud that's, lightning is just jabbing down over the cemetery. You can hear weird echoey chants from across, miles away that you can even hear in there. And you have to actually yell to have your voice heard over the chanting. Hey, is there anything going on in town? I don't know if I told you, but they said that the next moon, when it reaches its full rise, that Orcus is going to be here. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a dark cloud with lightning all the time over the cemetery, and there's this chanting. Can you hear the chanting and the tremors? And all the pets have run away, and there's no more birds, and the grass has died. Are you sure you don't want to check that out? So that's so here that highlights basically a couple different things, right? Rumors, update your rumors. Things are happening. Whatever, and this is good for having steps towards what's happening. So the Orcus cult, what do they need? They need the book of vile magic. They need the black wand. They need a priest, a high priestess of good to sacrifice. Right? So all these things are happening as they're accomplishing these tasks. Update the information that's getting out accordingly. Also, environmental stuff. What does it look like if they're undergoing some kind of month-long culmination of rituals and things to get Orcus coming out? Well, what happens in the environment? What do people see? What do people hear? What does it smell like? All these things, bring that in, have these dark clouds roll, have some fun with just how dramatic it is as they're doing these things. Different NPCs might show up. So, okay, the party's not in there. Well, someone else comes. Are they successful? Are they unsuccessful? What are they doing? But who knows? But they're there. And they may be trying to stop the ritual, and you can play, well, that's happening. So the party comes into town, and some other adventures are in there, and they're getting healed up, and they're bandaged up, and they're beaten up, and they're like, oh my gosh, we made it as far as the crypt, but there's something dark in there, and it drove us back, and I don't know what's going on, right? So use all these different things. Use your rumors. Use what people hear in the tavern. Even if the party doesn't actively go to say, I asked for rumors, just have it be the hubbub, the talking points in the town. Have NPCs showing up that are also interacting with this, come and talk about it. Have environmental things happen as well. Depending on what's going on, you might have the enemy start to make it known. So if the plot was instead the Goblin Horde is coming, maybe the Goblin Horde sends out scouts. Maybe the Goblin Horde sends out some kind of herald to try to get people to surrender before they even show up. What happens when they're scouring the countryside to feed their army? What else are they bringing with them? All these things. Maybe there's magic happening on their side. You can continually be updating your world as the party's moving around with all these different bits of data that point to this thing that they know hypothetically is happening, but now they're seeing also, no, it's really happening. It is really happening. So that is my answer there, Tag. Hopefully that was helpful. Maybe I'll do a video on it. I know I've mentioned some of the stuff in the past, but I understand with the streams, because they tend to cover a lot of ground, and I really haven't done a good job kind of cataloging all the information that's there that they don't always get out. I think those were the two that were top of mind. So I think, given that the quality of the stream is kind of junk, there's no reason to keep prolonging it. I shall be back for the rest of the week. I should be home, so fingers crossed I'll be able to stream. Sorry again for any audio or video difficulties that anybody's experienced wherever they're streaming it. I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on. Hopefully it'll be fixed by tomorrow, but I'm not sure what's happening, so I don't know if I can fix it, but I will try. Other than that, folks, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.